Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to The Opinion. So this is a pilot episode, so feedback is welcome. It's an idea I've had kicking around in my head. If you're not across it, I'm bringing my review format back, which is, more longer form videos. It's still all very off the cuff, hip fire. I refuse to write scripts. But generally speaking, there's room for a complimentary video series, a bit more opinionated, which is not something I really do, but a lot of people ask for it because my opinions slip through sometimes. The unique twist that we're probably going to do here is I will get a smaller game that I'm probably not going to put a lot of time into, if we're honest. However, I do enjoy shouting out the little guy. I've got the platform. They've given me the key. I don't really see harm in saying, hey, here's a game, here's some footage, here's a blurb, and go bloody figure it out for yourself. So the spirit of the overview, but we might be able to modernize it a little bit. Anyway, so that's a bit of a setup. Apologies for front loading, but it's necessary and I will take feedback. So today's B-roll is from Blacksmith Master, this game that's about to come out. It might be out already. I'm not 100% sure. Developed by Untitled Studio. They did Tavern Master previously. Very similar games, same art and all that, different theme. Published by Hooded Horse. I'm a big fan of everything they publish. It's pretty cool. I've chipped away at it this morning. It's deceptive in what you might think it would be by name. Blacksmithing is usually, design the hilts or the shine the pommel or the whetstone the blade, that sort of thing, right? It's a bit more singular, a bit more simulation. This is more about the industrialization of the entire process. So by the end of my time with it, I had like 12 dudes mass building things, like they auto build your orders. So anyway, that's your blurb. It's pretty cool. Have a look for yourself. Check it out. So the opinion. We're going to have a topic. The topic today is that review scores suck. I think it seems as good a place as any to start because, if you're not aware of it, I'm trying out my own experimental review system, which gets equal parts people with morbid fascination of where it's going because it's difficult to see when it's not complete, but then there's other people that fucking hate it because for many reasons, but a lot of it is because they don't understand it, which is fine. I appreciate that. But also because it's changed, because it's different. And that's the thing I kind of want to focus on more. So this is less a puff piece about my review process. Maybe we'll do another video explaining that a bit better, like drill down into it. So this is less about what I'm doing and more about the genesis of the problem, which is that the review system in current gaming 2025 is kind of broken and messy, and a lot of people will agree that they don't like it, but it is what it is. It's the status quo. No one's really got a solution. That's sort of what I'm looking at. Anyway, I don't want to bury the lead. The current review system is memed upon ad nauseum. IGN 7 out of 10, right? That's the running joke. They give 7 out of 10 to every single game, and with very rare exception, you'll get an 8, you'll get a 9, maybe you'll get a 6, maybe you'll get a 5, right? But that's about it. You only use the top half of the point system, which to me, that's a huge red flag. Like, why? What are you doing? I mean, we know why, but let's just unpack it slowly. But consider, okay, what's less than 5? Like, ask yourself, what would make a 1, a 2, or a 3 out of 10 different from one another? Really? Like, tangibly. IGN may have an editorial policy printed out somewhere internally where they say, if it's non-functional in this area, that's 1, 2, 3, whatever. But from an external consumer perspective, because remember, the system is to serve us, the consumer. Or you. When I'm making a review, it's to serve you, right? Not the pseudo ego of the actual establishment itself. So when I asked my mates, which I did, 2, 3, 4 out of 10, what would that be? According to the current review systems, no one knows. No one knows. It'd be sort of like maybe just having a less than 5 category, right? The game's so bad it's less than 5, we're not going to give it. Which is interesting because, without going into my review system too much, that's a percentile scale placement system, and it's based off of how educational ranking requirements work, at least in Australia. ATAR, ENTAR, HEX, no, that's the fees? Oh, I can't remember. Whatever, but the year 12 getting into university giving you a score is a ranked scaling system. Essentially, only so many people can have the same score amount. But what I'm using as a comparison is if you get something like less than 60, like as in you're, no offense, but you're academically just really not great. You were not built for university, and the system is to tell you if you're built for university. then they just give you less than 60 or something like that. However, is that the point of a 10-point scale when reviewing a video game? Like, truly, that's the question that I ask. Then I'm like, if a game's less than 5, why aren't you just, say, having a thumbs up, thumbs down system? Something like Steam, something like Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, they've all got their own issues, and these aren't supposed to be facetious questions, but I think they're important questions that people should ask. So we meme about 7 out of 10, and in a almost psyop kind of way, people rage and get furious when their game gets an 8 instead of a 9, or maybe it gets a 6 instead of a 7. Like, there's a cart before the horse problem. So many people get invested in fighting over whether it's a 7 or 8, then they don't see the forest for the trees and go, well, why isn't it a 1 or a 2? Why isn't 1 or 2 more conventionally used? And why isn't it more acceptable? Like 5 out of 10, I would assume, would be a middle of the road game. Nothing wrong with that, perfectly fine. Guilty pleasures would be 3s or 4s, right? These would be perfectly good games, and yet you can't give them that score. And broadly speaking, my best assumption is it's because it's dangerous from a relationship with a developer. I really think it is. And also, actually, to your customer, like, as much as everyone jokes about 7 out of 10, they've kind of won if you're joking about it. Like, you're not outraged marching in the streets trying to burn down the offices of review centers or anything like that, right? People aren't outraged enough to shake the system. I kind of am. That's why I'm changing it. But if you're joking about 7 out of 10, they've already won, right? They've already beat you because you've accepted. So 5 should be a normal score. It really should. And I don't think 4 would be a bad game. Like I said, 4 would be a 2008 Alone in the Dark. You know, janky, guilty pleasure. There's a good game in there, but it's very messy, right? And from a quality control perspective, I cover a lot of games. I cover probably more games than most. And I'm telling you, a lot of this shovelware shit, you know, if we're going to use your 10-point scale, they're probably 4 out of 10s. They're okay. I could get some fun out of them for sure, but we just don't have a metric anymore because we've been smothered with the establishment metric. 7 out of 10, maybe an 8, maybe a 6. I mentioned it being safe from a publisher perspective, and that's just it. They all get their codes given them for free. I mean, I get a lot of codes for free, for sure. I really do think not biting the hand that feeds is a big deal. Like, there's layers to it. A lot of the people that I deal with, and, you know, same as these establishment, it's not necessarily the direct developer or the publisher. Usually it's a third-party PR company, and they will be handling a portfolio of multiple releases, right? That's sort of how their business model works. It's less like a single community manager dealing with front-end player base, right? That's you as a gamer, not to really draw a super line between me and you, but I'm more industry focused and I have industry relationships. You deal with community managers. For the most part, I deal with PR companies. And if you upset them, for whatever reason, they will blacklist you. And what that means is a blacklist from a portfolio. So you've upset an individual that has nothing to do with the video game making process. And, you know, this is a whole thing that could be talked about. And it's happened to me. I've absolutely been blacklisted, and I'm not going to name companies and names. But the only way that I could start getting back in touch with certain companies was when this person finally got ousted from their company. Thank God. But that was a whole year hiatus. And I wasn't the only one. Like, it's a while ago and he probably doesn't remember, but like Mac Worthaby got swept up in that as well. But my point is, everyone's very much aware of this. So I'm a professional, I'm polite, you know, I play nice with all the PR companies. But if you bite the hand, if you start reviewing their games negatively, all of a sudden they'll pull up the drawbridge and there's, you know, half a dozen game companies that you won't get to talk to for the rest of their career at that company. It's a tough thing. However, then you've got people like me that are at the point where I don't give a shit. So I'm just going to review games how I feel. But again, not to make it about me and my score. This is more to just try and explain why we have all these 7 out of 10s. Because if they start giving new AAA releases a 5 out of 10, then half a dozen AAA companies will no longer provide them review access. And while I don't think that's necessarily the be-all and end-all, there's nothing wrong with buying a game at release and then powering through it and reviewing it a couple of days later. I find that as a YouTuber, I do still get success in that. There is something to be said about being first over being best. And I really do think a lot of the establishment still holds on to that. They've got a huge amount of grandfathered market share, and people don't necessarily go to them because they're the best in the business. They go to them because they are the business. They're there. They get every key on time, but the consequence of that is that they have a very, very safe review system. Anyway, look, I don't want to necessarily waffle. I still want to keep these short, around, that 10-minute time, and talk about an issue. Again, I don't write scripts. I really loathe that sort of stuff, so at times it might meander. I can keep it all fairly tight because I've spent years just doing daily videos talking to a microphone, so it's not such a jump for me. I can talk about my opinion all bloody day quite easily. But we might just leave it at there. A light surface level discussion on review scores, how I think that they're broken, their legacy inherited, they don't serve the people anymore. And as we get more and more people like me with microphones and opinions and platforms and sharing it in the sort of free market that is YouTube, we're sort of realizing that we're not the only ones. That a lot of us feel this way, that something should change. Do we just not review at all? Or, some YouTubers have come up with their own methods. Maybe we can do a video talking about that, because I can see a lot of problems with the video essayists coming as like a second wave issue in the YouTube space. Or maybe, we do some outlandish, unusual stuff trying to rock the status quo with, say, my review system. Anyway, just some thoughts. Share yours. Let me know. Are there topics you want me to talk about? Do you have thoughts around this? I'm not against doing follow-ups as well, so if I get some interesting feedback around this, then we can dig deeper down the rabbit hole. This might be a total misfire and people have no fucking interest in my opinion whatsoever. But I do have a feeling that there are at least a few of you that have been waiting for me to pull the trigger on this and get into this space a bit more. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.